Oh boy, here I go building again. Hey folks, if you are here, I'm going to assume you've already seen the first 10 Symbaroum builds. You know what the game is, you have a clue of how to make a character. So I'm going to kind of jump right into it. I got 10 big characters to talk about. I have some more obscure picks for sure, but we're also going to talk a little more about how to insert them into the world of Symbaroum and how to approach their story in addition to their build. So let's get into it. And I'm not going to keep you waiting on this one because she's pretty prominent on the thumbnail. And you know she's going to be here, so we're going to talk about her. Emma Frost, I think, has become pretty iconic in Marvel Rivals. They have taken this comic book character in a very cool direction for the sake of making an interesting silhouette and an interesting uh, set of abilities for that game. And I think you can do the same thing in Symbaroum. So the concept here and the concept, I also know it's ironic that as I was making this video, Marvel Rivals released another big lady Vanguard that looks like a Symbaroum character, but put in that game. But we're gonna focus on Emma Frost. So yeah, I think we know what this whole character's deal is. When we get to her powers and abilities, though, she's actually kind of a tank. So let's see what that looks like. But first, let's look at her story. Now, Emma Frost is a big lady. She's a big character model in the game, and she's going to be a big lady in Symbaroum, and that means we're actually going to make her a troll. Yeah, so trolls are pariahs. They're seen as monsters, and that ties in pretty well with the way that mutants are looked at in the Marvel universe. So I think this works great. Emma is going to come out of the forest and she is going to say, "No, I'm not going to be a pariah. You are going to look at me and you are going to respect me and you are going to possibly worship me." She is going to have other trolls and pariahs that make crafts that she is going to sell. So she has a bit of a business going on. She is going to convert to the religion of Prios to make herself more approachable to the Ambrians, and that's going to be reflected in her powers. And she is actually going to aggressively defend the rights of herself and her fellow pariahs. So, our race is a troll that gives us access to some interesting monstrous powers, but it is going to force us to pick up the pariah burden, which will give us our 5 bonus XP. For our boons, we want enterprise, as already covered, and we want to pick up a servant. Now, that servant is going to be you, specifically you, the viewer listening to this video. She is going to reach out of the game and grab you, and you are going to be the servant in game. Let's keep going. Now, when we get to our abilities, we're going to pick up novice level regeneration, which we unlock as a troll. This is usually a monster power that we get to grab because of our race. So we are going to regenerate 2 toughness per turn unless we are hit with a certain kind of damage. This ability actually lets you pick and choose what kind of damage will affect that. I'm going to go with the classic fire for our troll. So if we're hit with fire, our regeneration stops. But if not, we're going to be regaining health every turn. So that's already great. We're also going to grab armored. That's going to give us just 2 flat damage reduction. So we're already pretty nice and tanky. Let's go further. We're going to grab robust. Trolls can be robust just like an ogre can. We're taking that actually at adept. That's going to give us plus 1d6 armor and damage, but we're going to have a -3 on our defense, how easy we are to get hit, and we can only wear light armor, which works out for Emma because we don't want to cover her up all the way. We're going to take Dominate because, come on. And we're going to take Strangler because one of her abilities in the game is this big chokehold grab, so that we know that she can do this. This makes sense, and it's only a 10 XP pickup. Perfect. We're going to pick up Shield Fighter. That's going to give us a very minor damage boost. It's also going to give us an extra defense buff when we're carrying a shield. Emma Frost obviously doesn't carry a shield in the game, but the way we transfer that into Symbaroum is that she is going to be carrying that shield while she has her diamond body from Armored. She's going to pick up Bend Will. She is a telepath, so we are going to have that option in our back pocket. We are also going to grab Theurgy. So we are going to be a mystic. We're only taking that to novice, and we are going to take Blessed Shield, a Theurgy power, to master. So remember that we should have 2 permanent corruption going on. Now we are going to grab Ritualist to grab 3 rituals at Adept for 30 XP. That's going to be Command Confession because you've been a very bad boy. We're going to grab Judging Bonds because, Mr. Wizard, you've been a very bad boy. And we're going to grab Purging Fire. Now, let's look at Purging Fire. Now, most mystical traditions have a way to purge permanent corruption from your character sheet, but you're going to have to spend not only an ability to do it, but there's going to be some other risk factor. In this case, taking fire damage from the holy burning coals, which will bypass our troll regeneration, or perhaps it's a very hot, steamy bath. But anyway, you are also going to have to spend experience. So I actually have some redundant XP done into this build for Emma so that we can afford Purging Fire, but that is going to affect our corruption when we move into our stats. So we have 5 accurate. We don't need it. Our cunning is 14. Now, this works on a character level because Emma is kind of this shrewd political schemer. We also need it because when we use Strangler, that is a cunning check. Our discreet is 5. We don't need it. We want to be seen. Our persuasive is 15. That is where our dominate is coming through in our attacks. Our quick is an 8. Our resolute is a 14. Our strong is a 14. And our vigilant is 5. Our toughness is a 14. Our pain threshold is 7. Our corruption threshold is 7. And if everything goes right with the Purging Fire rituals, our permanent corruption should be 0. But I put an asterisk there because if this is your character and you were doing the rolls, there is a chance that this doesn't work out for you. And I kind of like that as a design element. Now, our goal is that pariahs should be free, respected, and rich. Our shadow is glittering blue diamond. Now, our primary weapon is going to be the long whip. In the game, Emma Frost's main attack is like this diamond beam thing, which would work out really well in like 5th edition D&D, where you have easy access to cantrip magic every turn, and we don't have that in Symbaroum. In Symbaroum, you can't just casually throw out minor magic. It always comes at a cost. It's always calculated. But the long whip is going to be an excellent tool for control as a tank because we can potentially ensnare our enemies, and with the jointed quality, we can break through the defenses of other big shielded fighters. Our attribute to hit is persuasive. We want to land at or below a 15, and our damage winds up being a respectable 1d8 plus 1d6, even though our focus on this character is not to deal damage, it's to tank damage. Our light armor is going to be a Scald's Cuirass. We're also grabbing a steel shield, which has the screening quality, so it's going to be hard to hit us and our allies with ranged attacks. Our defense is a 7. We're going to be getting hit a lot, but that's okay because our armor from the Cuirass, from Robust, and potentially from our Blessed Shield is going to be a D4 plus a D6 plus 3 plus a D8, and that's phenomenal. We wound up recreating the resilience of the monstrous trolls that you see in the book, and I think we accomplished our goals pretty well. Now, there are plenty of other cool builds you can make from Marvel Rivals characters or Overwatch characters or League of Legends characters. I think the strengths of these games, the reasons why they're popular and why we play them, is because the characters stand out as a role you want to play. Not only do they fulfill their mechanical concept in the game world, but they stand out as silhouettes, as cool voices, as characters that you can quickly latch onto and say, yeah, I think I want to be that for a little bit. So we did great here with a weird concept that is not within the realm of fantasy. Let's get a little more classical with our next pick. And we are going to make Aragorn, son of Arathorn, Strider, yada yada yada, all that. You know him. So he needs to be a Strider. He is a healer, but he's also a fighter, and he's also a leader. Now, there are a few characters from the last video and from this one who are leaders, and there is specifically an ability in the game called Leader that I'm not going to use, so I want to address that quickly. Now, the novice level power of this ability is that you can use persuasive instead of resolute. However, it doesn't affect your corruption threshold. This means that even though we can kind of rely on our high persuasive, you would still need a decent resolute if you're going to combine this with mystical powers like it's supposed to be. When we get to the adept level, we have this cool call out power. We say hit that guy over there, and all of our allies get a damage boost. And that seems pretty good, except that this is an active ability, which means that we are sacrificing our potential to deal damage to a thing to let everyone else deal more damage to that thing. So it's a calculated trade-off that you have to say, is this actually going to benefit me? And that's not something that I want out of spending 30 XP on something. And then finally, at master level, everybody gets to use our persuasive instead of their own resolute. And this can be huge in the right scenario. I think it's a decent master level ability with some lackluster stuff leading up to it. So you would really have to build into this with a mystic that has both good persuasive and still good resolute. So even though we want to build a leader and this says leader on the 10, I don't think it exactly gets the job done the way I'd like it. So let's talk about how Aragorn would fit into Symbaroum. I think he would be a barbarian from Clan Yadessa. He was some kind of prince to them. He was taken by the elves, and he didn't resent the elves for it. He learned from them. He joined the Iron Pact, but now he is ready to rejoin the world of humanity, and he is going to replace Chieftain Theraban of the barbarians, who I happen to maintain is either an illusion or a homunculus controlled by the Huldra, but that is up to everybody's interpretation. So we are going to be a king that is going to return, and we are going to have lots of outland abilities. Let's see what those are. We're going to be an abducted human. That's going to give us bushcraft for free. We also want to get Pathfinder, Green Thumb, Soulmate for our elf love, Arwen, and we want to get Heirloom for our very nice sword, Narsil. We're going to grab Master Level Two-Handed Force because it's very good. We're also going to get Beast Lore. Now, Beast Lore at Adept is not only going to give us the ability to kind of look at a creature and then say, okay, Game Master, I would like to know their stats, please, which tracks because Aragorn has been around and learned about lots of creatures. He should be able to look at something and be like, a cave troll, here's how we kill it. And at Adept level, we get a plus 1d4 damage boost to a certain type of being. We're going to say cultural beings. So this is any human, troll, whatever. We automatically get plus 1d4 damage on it as a passive. So that's pretty great. We also want Lore Master. I think this fits for Aragorn. He's kind of a warrior poet. He knows his stuff. This is going to give us access to languages and artifacts in the game. We do want to be a healer. We want to be able to get that King's Foil and help out Frodo the Goblin. So we're going to grab Alchemist and Medicus, both at novice level, which is enough to get the job done without being a focused healer. We're actually going to grab the mystical tradition of troll singing, and that's not the only time you're going to see troll singing on this list today. We want it at novice so that we don't take permanent corruption for novice level troll singing abilities, and we're going to grab combat him actually at adept level. Now, this is a free action that is going to give us 1d4 temporary corruption when we use it. It's also going to give us 1 permanent corruption because we have novice level troll singing, but we're taking combat him to adept. However, for this trade-off, as long as we can keep up our hymn, our battle cry against Ambria, we are giving all of our allies +1 quick, +1 strong, and +1 accurate. Basically, a +1 on their defense and a +1 on their offense. This is very good, and I think it's very fitting for Aragorn for those big moments where he comes out and commands a battle. And I think this works better than the leader ability we could have picked up. Now, when we get to our attributes with Aragorn, sometimes I've been min-maxing these characters. Most of the time, I want to make sure we have a 15 to really get the job done. But I think Aragorn is more well-rounded. He has a lot of different things he can do, and he's not particularly terrible at anything either. So these are more subdued, more middle-of-the-road stats. We have 13 in accurate because Aragorn should be able to use a bow as well as his sword. He has cunning 13. We need that for some of our healing stuff and lore master. Our discreet is 6. That could be higher, but I guess like movie Aragorn, he's not really sneaking around a lot. Persuasive is a 9. Quick is 7. That one could be higher, but we're going to cover that with some armor. Resolute is 12 because we do have magical abilities with troll singing, and I also think that Aragorn has a lot of willpower. I think he would have been able to resist the pull of the ring, maybe not as long as Frodo, but he would have been able to do a good job at it. Strong is 8. The characters in Lord of the Rings are actually, pretty squishy, and Lord of the Rings in general is kind of a low tier magical setting. That's not a bad thing at all. Vigilant is a 12. We want to be good at ranging and being on the lookout for the party. Toughness 10, pain threshold 4, corruption threshold, nice 6. We are carrying that 1 point of permanent corruption. Our goal is to return, and our shadow is true silver. Now we get to our blade, Narsil, which you could really spice up and build into a custom artifact. I don't want to go that far with it today. I just want to say that it is a bastard sword with the precise quality, and it is also hallowed. Our to hit stat is accurate. We want to land a 14. The damage is going to be a D4 plus a D12, ignoring armor, and we're going to get a bonus D4 against corrupted creatures for that hallowed quality. We're going to pick up some laminated armor. It's going to be reinforced. Our defense is a 4, which is going to be pretty dangerous. Yeah, like Aragorn is going to have to play it very smart and deal a lot of damage because when he starts taking hits, he is going to go down. He is going to have to be leading a party to really get stuff done. Our damage reduction, however, is a respectable 1d6 plus 1. And yeah, Aragorn, I think we made a really decent build that's true to the spirit of our dude. We'll see where he lands on the tier list later on towards the end of the video, but Aragorn's not really the main character of the story. I want to look at a character with big main character energy. So let's go to the next one. We're going to make Paul Atreides. This should be a popular pick. Like, I know the Denis Villeneuve movies were very popular. I know that a lot of people have read the books or are aware of the books. But I don't really hear people talking about Dune or Paul in casual conversation. So we'll see what we can do with this one and see how well I can connect with it. We are going to have powers of the voice. There is a prophecy tied to our name. We want to utilize desert power and the spice melange. And if we can, we're going to fit in some dueling with the slow knife that pierces the shield. Now, within Symbaroum, we are going to be a young noble. Our dad is a duke, our mom is a witch, and our family has been declared the new rulers of the very profitable city of Savona. And then we're going to lose everything to Ambrian infighting. I think this all works so far. And then when we run away, we are going to get picked up by the Goya clan, the far north misunderstood snake people. And it turns out that our mother's order of witches has planted a prophecy within Goya clan that one day they would receive a messiah, and that is going to be our Paul. Our race is Ambrian. We are going to pick up privileged, even if we're not going to express that very much, because remember, all of our nobility is going to kind of be taken away. Our boons, we want to pick up augur. This is going to help us with any fortune telling related powers. And our burden is going to be addiction. Now, I'm not 100% positive if this applies to Paul. I know that there is spice addiction, but I don't know if it applies to him. I haven't read the book in a while, so let me know whether or not this works in the fiction. But I think for our character, it's a nice way to bring in this spice aspect to the character. And things are immediately going to get very weird with Paul's build as far as making this character work in Symbaroum. We want to grab alchemy so that we can harvest spice. We want entangling vines at master. This is our desert power. Our Paul is going to have control over the sands of the Ambrian plains. And this is going to be a potent weapon in not only trapping foes, but breaking through their armor. We're going to be an adept level witch. We're going to grab Cloak of Thorns and kind of ditch conventional armor. As long as we're standing in one spot, the thorns, or in this case, the sand, the ground, is going to protect us. We want to grab master level ritualist. That means we need quick growth and living fortress. Quick growth is very bad. Living fortress is very, very good. But I think the quick growth comes in for the ability to be able to kind of terraform the desert and bring water back. That works. We also have turn weather for that same reason. We're going to pick up summoning because you can call upon a world serpent. There are world serpents in Symbaroum. That's going to be our sandworms. We're also going to grab nature's lullaby. So if we need to go around a sandworm, we can do that. I think nature's lullaby typically only works on like abominations and undead, but I think you can do a flavor bend here and talk to your game master and make it work with something alternate. And of course, we're going to grab fortune telling. We're going to pick up Bend Will. We're going to get exceptional attribute with a +1 in Resolute to really help with our mystical powers. And I think this tracks for Paul. After all, fear is the mind killer, and we are going to have no fear. And then finally, we're going to round it out with strong gift to get a signature power to cast entangling vines with very little temporary corruption. Now, you'll notice here I kind of failed in one of my concept goals with making him a knife fighter. And it's because I started out making the build with some knife fighting abilities, stuff like feint, backstab, knife play, but the stuff that you need to make a really, really proficient and deadly knife fighter winds up being so expensive that it would have come at the cost of our desert power element. So I think what we wound up making here is something that stays true to the concept overall while sacrificing the most visible element of Paul, which is the knife. Would our Paul be able to defeat the Ambrian rival Fade Routha in a duel? Yes, absolutely. Actually, I think between the Cloak of Thorns and Entangling Vines, he would still be able to get the job done pretty darn good and in a more surprising way that would make people bow down to him as the new Duke and perhaps even the Emperor. So our accurate is 5, our cunning is 10, our discreet is 10, persuasive is 13, quick is 12, resolute 16, way up there, strong is 8, vigilant is 7. We have 10 toughness and 4 pain threshold, 8 in our corruption threshold, and 1 point of permanent corruption. Our goal, if they do not bow down to us, is going to be a holy war against Ambria. And our shadow is warm waves of gold broken by twinkling deep blue crystals. And I'm actually not really going to give us a traditional weapon and armor. Our Paul would be carrying a dagger, but we don't really care about it. That's just kind of our sidearm. We're going to focus on entangling vines, which does hit in a chain, so we can hit a field of enemies with this. We need to hit a 16 on our resolute to make this happen. The damage is only a d6, but that's a d6 every turn, ignoring armor. Yeah, this is an army wiper, folks. Our armor is a thorn cloak, our defense is a 12, and that is going to give us 1d6 damage reduction. And that is going to be our Symbaroum Paul. Let me know in the comments if you like that we went in a sort of different direction with the concept, or if you think I should have stuck with the knife fighter that also had a few mystical Bene Gesserit powers. But let's move on to our next one, which is actually something that a lot of Symbaroum folks have talked about. So you may already know that there are a number of Symbaroum rituals that give you access to second characters, your familiars, your patron saints, your rune guardians. This is a big deal. It really does give you just a second character sheet, a second piece on the board, and there's no limit to them. So why not build what people have called the Pokemon Master? Let's try to do this. Now, obviously, the inspiration we could go for from this is Ash. There are a few other anime characters that occurred to me, and I wound up going with the one that brings me most joy personally, even if the series itself doesn't bring me the most joy. I love every moment that this character is in. We are going to build a builder. Mei Hatsume, a support course character from My Hero Academia, who builds babies. Lots and lots of babies. Let's go. Within the game, we are going to be a barbarian from Odaiva clan. The Odaivas are the closest in proximity to the Ambrians, and they've kind of cautiously adopted their ways so that they can use it for their own profit and their own benefit. They're very savvy, and I think that fits in with Mei very well. She's going to be a friend to goblins and other pariahs, and that's going to give her access to some very cool lore, which she is going to try to recreate. Our race is going to be barbarian. We're going to pick up contacts so that we have the hookup on materials and designs. We're also going to grab forbidden knowledge so that we can build kind of outside our typical realm of expertise. And our burden, I think, is very fitting, is impulsive. Now, artifacts in Symbaroum are very closely tied to the lore master ability. We want to make a very intelligent character who can look at something, assess it, and say, ooh, I can make that now. So we actually want to take lore master all the way to master for 60 XP. We're going to grab Flame Wall, and you'll see why a little later, but this is actually kind of a defense spell to say, nope, back off. We want artifact crafter, at adept level 30 XP so that we can make some nicer support items for our party. And we want Sixth Sense. This is kind of to take advantage of May's quirk in My Hero. Everybody has a quirk that's their superpower. You can see her eyes there have the little targets on them. She has this scope quirk. So we're going to take that a little more literally here and give her some powers which with maybe staying in the back line and commanding her babies, but also providing some range support. And we're going to take levitate. She has these levitating boots in the show, so I think this is appropriate. And in Symbaroum, this gives us more defensive power because it means that normal enemies can't run up to us and hit us with melee. They have to take us out with ranged weapons or ranged mystical powers. We're going to take wizardry, we're going to take witchcraft, and our rituals are the most important part of our kit. This is where our babies, our servants come from. We want flaming servant and twin servant. This means we had to fulfill the conditions of becoming a pyromancer, so wizardry was a big deal. We're also picking up familiar and blood bond from witchcraft. I have blood bond starred because this is another permanent corruption purge ritual where we take our permanent corruption and put it into our familiar. We're going to grab Rune Guardian, which is a symbolism thing, which would give us permanent corruption. We're going to grab Patron Saint, which is a theurgy thing, which is going to give us permanent corruption. So we need Blood Bond to kind of counteract that. Our accurate is 5, our cunning is 14, our discreet is 5, discretion is not her strong suit. Our persuasive is 13. May is actually very good at not only making her items, but selling them as well. Our quick is 10, our resolute is 14, strong is 6, vigilant is 13, toughness 10, pain threshold is only 3, corruption threshold 7, permanent corruption 0. Our goal is to become noticed for my amazing craftsmanship, and our shadow is pink cloud spotted with gray soot. Now, you'll notice here we're actually ditching armor, something that I've talked about doing on other Mystic characters that we're going to commit to with May. Our weapon is going to be a composite bow, which is going to have deep impact. So if we hit a 13, we can land 1d8 plus 1 damage. And that is one way to build a Pokemon Master concept in Symbaroum. You are kind of shoehorned into being a Pyromancer because of Twin Servant. It's the easiest way to get a bonus character. But from there, you can shift around some of the abilities that I picked in order to better define your support character. Now then, that was a hero. Let's talk about a villain. We're going to make Captain Flint from Black Sails, who I've already talked about on this channel, so I'm going to keep that part of things brief. And I'm calling him the Terrorist because that is what Ambria would call this character. Now, we need to make he's a pirate, which we don't have oceans in Symbaroum, so he's going to be a highway robber. Well, we want to keep that swashbuckly feel. We want to be a liar. We want to have some cannons if we can, and he is going to be a captain. Now, this guy was an Ambrian officer and a gentleman who became a victim of political intrigues. He became a highway robber as a way of exacting revenge and kind of rallying people to his cause, creating perhaps a thieves' republic. And he is going to use this new power to declare war on civilization itself so that the denizens like him can be free. Our race is going to be Ambrian. We want to pick up contacts for free. And you'll notice that I went all out with our boons. There is kind of a guideline to limit boons in the Advanced Player's Guide. And I typically encourage people to not get too many boons because they're not going to kill enemies and they're not going to keep you alive, but they are kind of the biggest part of your out of combat skill expression. And that's more what Flint is all about. He's a talker and a liar, so we need that. We want con artist up to 15. Storyteller is going to be 5. Manipulator is 15. Cartographer is 5. And we have a false identity. Our burden is, of course, that we are wanted. Now, this means that we have much less XP to spend on our actual combat page. So this is all we have. Exceptional attribute, persuasive. We want to take advantage of our persuasive, which we need for all of our boons, to also get dominate, which we are taking to master. Now, we know that dominate at novice, like with Emma Frost, lets us use persuasive instead of accurate in place of our attack. Adept level kind of gives us this ability where we shift aggro from ourselves to another, which is not a good thing to do for your allies, but is perfectly in character for Flint. And at master level, we have a forced surrender ability. That is something that we see in Black Sails, where Flint, sometimes will best an enemy but leave them alive for a new ally or for his own personal gain. And sometimes that helps him out in the end. We want to pick up Sword Saint for 60, which I'm not thrilled about. I think it's the closest thing we can do to like a duelist fighting style, and it's not bad. It gives us a nice damage boost. It gives us some ripostes, which are free attacks. We are going to carry a parrying dagger in our offhand, which is not something we see with Flint, but again, we're trying to move him into Symbaroum. And finally, we want Siege Expert at Adept, which is where we get our alchemical fire tubes, our cannon blasts. So we're going to try to set up ambushes against Ambrian forces that are going to outnumber us. And that's how we're going to try to win with our band of thieves. Now our accurate is 13. That's not our melee ability, but we need this for siege mastery. Cunning is 11. Discreet is 8. Persuasive 16. That's up there. Quick is 13. We want to be able to act fast in the initiative round to get an edge on our opponents. Our resolute is 7. This is not a magical character, and he is often in emotional distress, so I think this tracks. Our strong is an 8. Our vigilant is a 5. Our toughness is 10. Pain threshold 4. Corruption threshold 4. Permanent corruption is 0. Our goal is war on civilization. Ambria will burn. And our shadow is red-orange fire. Our weapon is a fencing sword. We also have a parrying dagger, which we're not going to attack with. We're basically carrying it as a shield. So our attribute to hit is persuasive. We want to hit a 17, and we're going to deal a d12 of damage, but not really doing much about armor. Our armor is going to be woven silk, which is flexible. Defense is 13. Reduction is a d4. This guy is kind of squishy. We're going to have to lean on our manipulative powers and our siege engine strikes to be able to get the edge in the fight and then come in with our sword as a last resort. And that is Flint, our villain, who might not actually be a villain in your game. It depends on what kind of game you want to run and what kind of goals your party of players has, and that is the freedom that you have in Symbaroum. But let's try to make an absolute good guy with this next one. Now, I have to be careful here with this character for a couple reasons. Reason number one is that this character, Desmond Doss from Hacksaw Ridge, is from an American World War II film, which is already pretty far outside the genre, although I think there's a lot you can do with war movies and the dreadful war aspects we have in Symbaroum. Anyway, it is directed by Mel Gibson, and we're just not going to talk about that other than to say
what you want about Mel Gibson, but the son of a bitch knows story structure. Ah, yeah.
Anyway, the character Desmond Doss is not just Andrew Garfield in a movie. He's a real dude. Like, he's an actual Medal of Honor winning hero who saved his buddies dozens and dozens of times again, all while not carrying a weapon. So I think this is kind of inspiring, and I want to build a character for him, but with respect, this is not me trying to recreate a real dude. I am focusing on the Andrew Garfield portrayal we see on screen. Let's move on. So, with our concept, we obviously want to make a combat medic, a healer. We want to bring in some faith. He is a believer, perhaps in an old god that other people don't really understand, and we are not going to carry weapons. So we are going to be a Viraco barbarian. This is a more gentle nomadic tribe living on the Western Plains. But we are going to hear about a war against Dark Davokar where our clansmen are fighting and dying, and we are going to say we want to volunteer and we want to be a medic, but we are going to stick to our faith by not carrying a weapon. We believe that evil needs to be defeated, but we do not have to resort to violence to be a part of that. We can help others who are willing to wield weapons against the terror. That is how we are going to be a hero. Our race is barbarian. We're going to pick up bushcraft, so that's just one more way we can look out for our buddies. I'm not picking up any boons, even though we're getting the pacifist burden, which I'll explain here in a sec, because I don't want this to benefit us mechanically. Maybe it benefits our character on a spiritual level, but like Desmond isn't doing this for his own gain. He is doing it even though he knows it is a burden. He's staying true to his conviction. So let's look at what pacifist looks like. Now, I did a little homebrewing here, and there's a couple more instances of minor homebrewing, I will say, happening in this video, but it's all to achieve the end of the concept for the character. And I think that Symbaroum, particularly with boons and burdens, lends itself to some custom write ups like this. So, very quickly, pacifist. Whether by trauma, a personal creed, or faith in an old god, your character refuses to wield a weapon. This includes melee weapons, ranged weapons, alchemical weapons, or elixirs intended to harm another, or any mystical power or ritual which would reduce the toughness of another creature. This rule applies to any creature, including beasts and undead, as the mere act of violence might reduce you to their level. The character can still utilize sharp tools such as a wood cutting axe, and they might incidentally touch or carry another's equipment in the course of carrying out other tasks. If the character feels forced to wield a weapon, they may do so, but only by sacrificing one experience point or suffering one permanent corruption. We want to take Medicus, which is going to allow us to heal with our cunning attribute. We want to take Theurgy to master level. So our faith is really the thing that gives our character this power. And at master level, that is going to give us a 1d4 on all of our healing abilities. We want to pick up Lay on Hands, which is also going to be at master. Now, we do need Resolute to make this heal work. Although at master level, if we fail the check, we still get to heal a little bit, and we're going to get a 1d12 of self heal whenever we heal another. That's going to counteract inherent wound, which at novice level takes the pain away from somebody else in order to give it to ourselves. But then if we lay on hands right after it, we self heal. So this is a little cheesy, but because we're committed to our character concept, I think it works out very well. Let's see what else we got going on. We want to pick up Adept Ritualist, so we get 3 rituals. That is going to be Exorcism and Atonement, which is going to get rid of certain afflictions on our companions, our band of brothers. It is also going to help kind of like heal their souls in addition to healing their bodies. And we're going to grab Patron Saint, which is pretty far outside of anything we see in Hacksaw Ridge, the movie. But again, we're putting this character into a magical world. And I think in a world where Desmond has access to magic, he would want to give his fallen brothers a second chance to come back and help out one more time and say hi to their brothers. And I think that's kind of beautiful. We are going to pick up Life Giver, which is a benefit from us fulfilling all of the requirements for the confessor profession. Life Giver allows us to heal temporary corruption from ourselves and from all allies around us. So we're not just healing hit points, toughness, we're healing corruption, we're healing conditions. We can take care of our boys. Our accurate is 5. We don't need it. Cunning 13, discreet 12. This is actually something we see in the movie, that Desmond is able to keep a low profile, and that's how he survives so many things. Persuasive is 6. Quick is 8. Resolute 15. We need that obviously for our casting. Our strong is 10. Our vigilant is 11. Toughness 10. Pain threshold 5. Corruption threshold 8. Permanent corruption 0. Goal is not something big and grand. We're focusing on the moment and just helping one more person. Our shadow is white clouds pierced by yellow light. And that is our gentle soldier, Desmond. Let's get a little less gentle. Let's get a little more fantasy with my next pick. So, Dragon Age Inquisition is my favorite video game, and I wanted to pick somebody from it. And there's a lot of great characters I could have chosen, uh, but I wanted to focus on Mr. Iron Bull because I think that he's very interesting and he can insert himself right into Symbaroum. Now, he's a big guy. We're obviously gonna go troll here. There's no question about that. Uh, and you see that he's a buff guy, big weapon user, so you could interpret him as just being built like Himbo the Ogre, like we did in the first video. However, because Inquisition is a role playing game with lots of decisions, you can make him with a very different build. And when he first introduces himself to you, he offers his services as a bodyguard while also mentioning that he is a spy. And he has probably the spiciest romance course in the game. So let's see what we're going to do with the Iron Bull. Our Symbaroum story for this character is that we're a troll mercenary. At one point, we wound up besting the Wrathguards of Carvosti, which caused us to be recruited by the Holdra and become her personal bodyguard. While we're doing this, we are maintaining our status as a spy for the trolls of the underworld. Let's start out with Troll. That's going to give us 5 bonus XP for Pariah. We want to be a con artist because we are a spy. We are a liar. The name Hisrod actually means liar. We also want Telltale, which has to deal with a +1 bonus when discerning and spreading rumors. We are also going to get a custom boon. Yes, I did a little bit of homebrewing, just a little bit of homebrewing with a boon here. We're going to see what that looks like in a second. And we're going to pay for that with the burden of slow. We're going to be a big, lumbering, slow guy. Or should I say a big, swaggering, slow guy? Because the Iron Bull plays the long game. Now we're going to be alluring. This means that the character has incredible physique, charm, or both. You may choose to give yourself a second chance to succeed on all persuasive tests with a being, wooing them while you seek your ends. If, however, you fail such a persuasive test, they will spurn all future advances for the remainder of the adventure. Now, this is a little outside of what a typical boon could do. Boons typically give with giving some kind of +1 bonus in certain situations, but I wanted to play around with that with other mechanics in Symbaroum, such as a once per adventure ability and giving a second chance to succeed. So I think while I'm homebrewing here, this is very much in line with the game. But let's go on with the stuff that is set out in the rulebooks. Just like Emma, we're going to go ahead and grab Armored. That's going to give us +2 damage reduction. We're going to pick up Regeneration for 2 health regain per turn unless we take fire. We are going to take Iron Fist so that we can dump our Accurate and use our Strong for attacks. And we're naturally going to take Berserker. This ties in with the Reaver build path that Iron Bull has in Inquisition. It's going to give us a damage boost, but it's going to make us easier to hit, and you'll see why we actually want that on this particular build. We want to take Bodyguard at Master for 60 XP. So we are going to be specifically defending other characters. This is going to take a Resolute check, which is an interesting design decision since Resolute is normally reserved for magic abilities, that this one relies on your willpower to be able to jump in front of somebody and take the bullet. Now, since we're taking this higher, we can defend ourselves against these attacks like normal. At novice level, you jump in front of somebody and you have to take it. You don't make a defense roll. And at master level, we get a free attack on anybody who tries to attack somebody we're defending. This is not unlike the Sentinel feat in 5th edition D&D. And because we satisfied the conditions for it, we're going to go ahead and take the wonderful feat of strength. But I'm not done yet. We have plenty more XP to spend. We are going to pick up Witchcraft. Now, this may seem very different from our core concept, but I maintain that, at least for the latter 2 Dragon Age games, the warriors and even the rogues seem to take on kind of a magical quality, especially as represented in their power animations. So I think this fits in and it ties into our concept with being the ultimate bodyguard and defending people. We're going to grab master level inherit wound, which we already saw with our pacifist. So we take on damage from somebody else and invite it into ourself. When we take that at adept, we heal, or we only take half. And when we take it at master level, we send the other half over to an enemy, and there's no real defense for this. We just say we hit you, it bypasses damage reduction, they take it. So we're turning healing into offense, and even though we're harming ourselves, we don't care. We're regenerating. So this works out nicely. And finally, just to cap this off, that we're not just creating a safe space on the battlefield, we can create safety when we're done with everything with Witch Circle, essentially making a nice, cozy tavern for the Bulls Chargers when we're done. Our accurate is 5, our cunning is 11, discreet is 5, persuasive 13. We're actually a good talker and good at hiding our true intentions. Our quick is 11, our resolute is 13, our strong is 5, and our vigilant is 7. Toughness up there at 20, pain threshold 7, corruption threshold is actually pretty high at a 7, and we are carrying permanent corruption, 2 of it, from inherit wound. Our goal is to protect the Huldra, but also to protect the underworld. And it's going to be interesting on this character to see how those two goals interact or conflict with one another. Our shadow is deep red fire flickering low. Our weapon isn't anything too fancy. It's going to be the Warhammer from the Advanced Player's Guide. The Warhammer has the qualities bloodletting, massive, and unwieldy. Unwieldy means that we're not going to be able to move and swing in the same turn. We have to get in position and then we have to swing. But in exchange for that, it's massive, meaning we roll twice and take the better. And it's bloodletting, meaning that as long as we hit you, you start taking 1 point of damage, bypassing armor every turn, and it's compounding. So if we hit you twice, you're now bleeding for 2 every turn until somebody can heal you. We need strong 15 to hit. Damage is 1d10 massive plus 1d6 plus a bleed. Not too bad. We're going to pick out Wrath armor. Normally, this would only be available to a Wrath Guard. However, it's completely justified within our story of being the bodyguard of the Huldra that she could give us the hookup here. Now, Wrath armor is retributive. Whenever somebody hits us in melee, we're going to smack them back with 1d4 acid damage over 1d4 turns. So we want to get hit, and we're going to be taking more hits with our bodyguard ability when somebody tries to attack our companions. So our defense is only 2. Wrath armor's impeding value is appropriately a -4. We're going to take as many hits as we can with this character, and our armor is going to be 1d10, 1d4, plus 2. So we're rarely going to take very much damage from it. We just don't care. We're going to protect our allies. And that's going to be a slightly different take on a troll tank. And just like in the Dragon Age Inquisition game, this character could be a hero, could be a villain, could side with the Huldra and the barbarians, or could side ultimately with the trolls of the underworld and wind up fighting the people he was initially protecting. And I think that's very neat. But I also think that we've seen 2 very strong troll characters, and something needs to be done about that. We are going to make a troll slayer, or rather, an army of troll slayers sent out by Queen Corinthia with the Queen's Rangers to get this job done. Let's go. Our story is that we are an Indaros refugee offered citizenship in exchange for military service, and we are going to go off to slay the trolls with the Queen's Rangers, no matter the cost, and the cost is going to be a lot of us. Now, obviously, a troll in Symbaroum is not a Titan in Attack on Titan, but I think there are some neat little parallels, especially in the way that there are different levels of trolls and different levels of Titans. And without going into a whole tangent about Symbaroum's wonderful, I think, monster design, we can see that there are different resistances for each of these trolls. That's an ordinary rage troll, a challenging group living rage troll, a strong liege troll, and a mighty arch troll. So we need to make a soldier that can proficiently handle a famished rage troll or a group living rage troll, would have a little bit of a tough time against the liege troll, and would have a challenge against an arch troll, but ultimately could take them down. So that is going to be a mechanical goal on top of the concept of this character, and we do need something special to make this work, so here's just a tad little bit of extra homebrew. Now, the 3D maneuver gear in Attack on Titan is pretty iconic and pretty crucial to the awesome fight scenes that that series is able to put off. So, even before I knew I was going to make this build, I made a similar item that's a little more dark fantasy. So, Spider's Grass Belt. When using a strong, cunning, quick, or discreet test to climb or repel, the wearer rolls 1d8 and subtracts the result from the d20 roll. Cool, cool, cool. Nice little utility. The belt can be used to leap a great distance up to 3 moves in a single bound by causing the hooks to jolt out and then reel the wearer in. This succeeds without a test, and the wearer takes 1d4 temporary corruption. Okay, here's our little Spider-Man flying maneuver, and it is going to take on corruption, so we do have a limited quality to it, kind of like the gas canisters that the scouts have to keep track of. This effect can also target a creature, ensnaring a human-sized creature or latching onto a larger one, granting advantage on attacks as the wearer now has higher ground. So let's keep that in mind as we go into our build proper. Now, this build could be altered in slight ways to make any of the Attack on Titan soldier characters, but I had to pick somebody to focus on. It was going to be Mikasa, but I wound up going with Levi. He is the most compelling character, I think, through and through. And bonus points for being voiced by Matt Mercer. So he's going to be a goblin. He's going to be short lived, and he's going to be a pariah. This tracks with Levi's underworld urchin status in Attack on Titan. Our Boons is going to be fleet footed, so Iron Bull was slow. This guy's fast. Let's keep going. Goblins have access to an ability called Survival Instinct, which we will be taking to Adept with 30 XP. This allows us for an extra move once per scene, which is going to help us close the gap on our troll enemies. It's also going to give us an additional 1d4 armor, always good. We are going to take Beast Lore at master level for 60 XP. That is going to give us a plus 1d6 damage buff to ourselves and our allies. Crucially, we do have to pick a subtype. This isn't against all enemies, but we can pick cultural beings, and that's going to cover us for taking down trolls. It's also going to cover us for taking down humans. We are going to get Berserker at Novice for 10 XP. Now, we have to be careful with our Berserkers. Some of these characters, like Iron Bull, they can just go Berserk all the time. We want to use it very carefully and not use it for our turns where we are moving in and defending ourselves, and then turn it on when it's time to unload a flurry of slashes against a Titan. And we will be performing our flurry of slashes with twin swords, or in this case, twin short weapons. We want twin attack at Novice, that's going to give us 2 attacks per turn. We want Poisoner Adept for 30 XP. This is important because it's free and it lasts the whole scene. We have already noticed with the Iron Bull and Emma that they can regenerate, and we want to get some elemental essence of fire to put on our blades very quickly so that we can halt their regeneration and deal a little extra damage on top of it. We want knife play at master level. This is going to allow for an attribute swap where we are attacking with our quick stat rather than accurate. It's going to give us an extra attack, which means 3 attacks per turn. And while we're attacking a creature that relies on long weapons or long arms to hit us, they can't hit us as long as we're latched onto them and striking with our knives, so this works perfectly. Now, again, this scout base build can be cut up and swapped around so that you can play out a whole scout squad. You could even do a Symbaroum one shot that is an Attack on Titan episode. Totally. But for the specific attributes and the goals, we need to look at one character. So that's going to be Levi. We want accurate 5, cunning 14, discreet 13, because kind of hiding and moving into position is going to be an important part for our setup for this character before we unload those slashes. Persuasive is 5. Levi's not much of a talker. Quick is 15. Resolute 8. Strong 12. Respectable. Vigilant 8. Toughness is 12. Pain threshold 6. Corruption threshold 4. We are going to have to be careful when we are using our ODM gear. We're only going to reliably be able to use it once for a setup and maybe another time for an escape. Our goal is to slay the trolls for the living and for the fallen. Our shadow is twisted green covered in thorns. The Queen's Rangers are going to hook us up with a nice weapon, the Scout's Razors. These are going to carry the qualities precise and deep impact. Our attribute to hit is quick. We're looking for a 16. And if we don't have everything set up right, we're going to be hitting at 1d6 plus 1 3 times. However, if we're attacking a cultural being, and we're berserk, and we have advantage, and we're using our elemental essence, our damage is going to be 3d6 plus 2d4 plus 1 times 3, and I did the math. This can take out an arch troll in one turn if your rolls go properly. Our armor is going to be a scout's cloak. It is flexible. Our defense is either 14 or 9, depending on if we're berserk. Remember, this character, we're going to be swapping back and forth between them. Our impeding is only -1, and our armor reduction, thanks to the goblin survival instinct, is 2d4. So I'm very happy with how Levi, our scout, turned out. I'm actually very interested in the possibility of an Attack on Titan one shot. And we are going to stay around in this weeaboo space and look at yet another kind of edgy anime boy. Let's talk about a ninja. Now, on the channel, I've already kind of talked about how Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and One Piece, ironically enough, were major influences on me when I first started playing Pathfinder and then running my own Pathfinder games. But I think another piece to my kind of influence puzzle was actually Naruto, because even though I wasn't a fan of it, as the series went on into the war arc, and we won't get into all that, I think it laid a foundation for not only establishing different characters with different powers, like your American comic books, your X-Men, but putting those characters into unique teams and parties. And I wanted to pick out just one cool character who is also kind of a team leader. So we're going to build Shikamaru Nara, who, as you can see, kind of thinks this whole role-playing game thing is such a drag. Our concept, we want to use our tactical mind more so than our physical attributes. We want to, of course, be able to throw down a kunai. We want to have some kind of special shadow jutsu. And we're going to have a bag of little tricks, a bunch of surprises for whatever enemy is unlucky enough to cross our path. And our story for this guy is not too complicated. We're going to be a barbarian, I believe, from the Inouye clan. We are trained to be a spy, to go out and look at not only the Ambrians, but other barbarians. And through the formation of our team and perhaps the loss of our mentor, we are kind of forced into a leadership role. So our race is barbarian. We're going to pick up bushcraft for free. Our boons are Shadow Spawn, which helps us on basic stealth rolls, and we're actually going to grab Mirage for our shadow powers as kind of a distraction ability. We want to pick up Steel Throw at Adept. That's going to be a damage boost whenever we throw our knives, and it's going to give us 2 attacks per turn. Now, I'm also going to grab Trick Archery, and this might be a slight rule bend. It doesn't explicitly say like can only be used on longbows or whatever, but it does use the word archery, and I'm using it with thrown weapons. I think most cool game masters would be like, yeah, sure, whatever. You want to take a damage nerf to make a Throne Master, go for it. Most importantly, at Master level, this is actually going to give us a ranged parry. When somebody tries to attack us or attack an ally with a melee or a ranged attack, we can throw a knife at it and deflect the blow. Now, we want to take Tactician to master level with 60 XP, which is expensive, but it's going to allow us to tie all of our most important stats to a single attribute with Cunning, and that fits very well for Shikamaru. We want to take Strangler, which I typically only do at novice level because novice level is just really good for only 10 XP. But for Shikamaru, we're actually going to go for adept level so that we can get Choking Spores. This is going to be a ranged attack that is area effect and bypasses armor over a series of turns, damage over time. So we're going to use that, and we're going to also get Trapper so that we can potentially set up traps with our Choking Spores. Our accurate is 5, our cunning is 15, discreet 14, nice, persuasive 8, quick 5. Feels wrong, but with everything we got going on and with Shikamaru's kind of lazy attitude, I actually think it makes some sense that we're going to be acting last in initiative order. Our resolute is 10, our strong is 10, our vigilant is 13. Toughness 10, pain threshold 5, corruption threshold 5, permanent corruption 0. We're going to try to become a capable leader so that we can protect our loved ones, and our shadow is faded silver, rustling through falling green. Our weapon is our throwing knives. Our quality is precise so that we can try to hit a 16 on cunning for our attack. Our damage is going to be 1d6 times 2, but honestly, these are a distracting piece, kind of like they are in Naruto. We're going to use these for the first couple rounds in combat until we spring a trap or use our Strangler ability on somebody. So that's where our primary damage is coming from. Our armor is going to be standard barbarian issue studded leather. It's reinforced, so our defense is a 13, our impeding is -2, and our damage reduction is 1d4 plus 1. That's going to wrap it up on Shikamaru. I think it would actually be pretty neat to try to build a party around Naruto characters. And I'm going to wrap up this build video by showing you guys what we can do with a troll singer. Now, for Troll Singer, I could kind of do whatever I want here as far as cultural inspiration and just singers. I've already made a 10 bards build video for D&D where I included options like Will Ramos from Lorna Shore or Dio. And I did want to keep that metal aspect, so I thought about Slipknot because Symbaroum loves masks. I thought about Electric Callboy because I listened to them a lot recently and they just kind of are a good time and get me pumped up. But I wound up going with somebody completely different, but still completely metal. Our troll singer is going to be none other than Poppy. I'm Poppy. We are going to sing, we are going to scream, and we are going to win the battle. So, our story is that we were once a compliant, run in the mill goblin, but we were drawn to an ill goblin tribe, corrupted and founded in sorcery. And there we learned troll singing and were drawn to it, not to become our troll ourselves, but to seize this power right now. We amassed a legion of fans, and now we vow to leave the surface level that views us as pariahs and take over the underworld for our kind. Our race is goblin, we are short lived, and we are a pariah, and our boon is musician, as you may have guessed. Now we're going to obviously take troll singing at master level for 60 XP, which is going to counteract some corruption. We want weakening him at master level for 60 XP, which is going to be a huge chain stun and damage effect for all of our opponents. Let's open up this fucking pit. Retribution, Adept, 30 XP. If somebody feels like running up out of the pit and attacking Poppy, they are going to get an immediate magical response, which is going to damage them and call upon the wrath of our allies. In the classic mystic fashion, we are going to be carrying a staff, which is going to look a lot like a mic stand. We're going to take staff fighting at novice for an additional 2 points of defense. We're going to grab dominate so that we can use our persuasive power to strike back with our staff. And because we qualify, we are going to take strong gift with our signature spell being weakening him, minimizing the corruption on it, and we are going to double our corruption threshold so that we can keep the show going. Accurate 5, cunning 9, discreet 5, persuasive 14, quick 14, resolute 15, strong 12, not bad, vigilant 6, we have our band to look out for us, toughness 12, pain threshold 6, corruption threshold up there 15, permanent corruption 1. You'll notice we covered the permanent corruption in our mystical powers. However, this permanent corruption is going to come from an artifact, which we'll see next. Our goal is reclaiming the underworld, and our shadow is stark white with black spots. Our artifact weapon is the Screaming Scepter. The qualities are transcendental, which means that Poppy can hit somebody in melee range, or she can swing her staff and hit somebody at long range. We have a staff foot, which is going to give us a +1 on our attack. We need a 16 persuasive to hit on that attack, and our damage is going to be 1d6 plus 1. However, we can choose to take on 1d4 temporary corruption to add an additional 2d6. Our armor is a standard Scald's Cuirass, reinforced and flexible, 13 defense, -1 impeding, 1d4 plus 1 armor. And yeah, I am stoked with how Poppy the Goblin turned out, and I'm stoked with how all of these builds turned out, although some for different reasons. Let's go ahead and get to the tier list and assess which ones are just a little better, or a lot better. Poor Flint. We start out in D tier. Yes. Now, Flint was not helped by the abilities that I gave him. I said that I didn't want to just optimize and give everybody A tiers and S tiers. I wanted to give them things that were thematically appropriate. And unfortunately, Sword Saint, Siege Expert, and Exceptional Attribute all made perfect sense for the character, even though they're C tier. That gave us a pretty low mechanical score. The fantasy, I think, is an 8. I think a charismatic, lying scoundrel of a robber is something that people would want to play. Within the lore, Flint would be obviously disrespected, but he would be feared, so I think a 7 is good for him. And I think he has a fair amount to him, particularly on the out of combat boons that we gave him that would make him quite fun, but the flavor is an 8, and that's going to land us still pretty low in D tier. And we're going to jump all the way up to B tier with our next character, Shikamaru, the ninja, the shadow. Our mechanics are solid. The fantasy, I actually gave a 10 because I think a tricksy, smart rogue who kind of plans ambushes and leads a team is actually a big deal for a lot of people. Our lore is a 7. We're, again, looked down upon but respected by those who fear us. And our fun is an 8. Others might find this more fun than me. I think the meticulousness that you have to show with the trapper ability, or even with something like trick archery, is going to bring down this character when you're actually playing him, but not bad, B tier. And then we get to Paul, also in B tier. Paul is brought down from some lackluster rituals that still make total sense to the character, so I'm not ashamed of that. His fantasy is a 7. It's a very hard sell, even within Symbaroum, to say, oh, you see, we're a sandwich trying to summon world serpents. However, it does fit in perfectly well. I think this guy's lore would be a 10. And I think his fun factor with all the different rituals that we have at our disposal, plus some hand-to-hand combat ability, is going to be a 9 for fun, so that lands us at 8.28. And the bulk of our characters are going to be in A tier. Let's start things out strong with Aragorn's strong suite of A tier and B tier abilities. I think the fantasy is 10 because lots of people think Aragorn is very cool. Lots of people think just being a general ranger is pretty cool. The lore on this guy with being an abducted human coming back to be king is pretty darn great, and the fun I brought down to a 7. He was pretty squishy. He's a little strewn out between healing and those exploration abilities that when he gets in combat, he's going to have to be very careful with himself. So the flavor is a 9, but we land at 8.46. Not bad at all. Up next, we have Levi, or the Scout in general, with again solid abilities. I think the fantasy on just if I told somebody like, hey, you want to play an Attack on Titan character, or just a dedicated troll killer, titan killer, giant killer, I think that fantasy is a 9. The lore is a 6, and that it's weird because in a way that makes his lore an 11 because it ties in so well with the themes of Attack on Titan and how these soldiers are thrown out to the wind to get butchered, and that's exactly what the queen would do to them in Symbaroum. So the lore is a 6, but I stand by that 6, and I think that the fun is a 9. A lot of people want to play a high damage dual dagger rogue, and this gets the job done. So we land at an 8.5 A tier. Up next, we have Desmond Doss, our pacifist, and he is a confessor, and the confessor already landed pretty high on my first 50 classes tier list, so it's not a surprise that this guy is up there. I think that people would find the extra challenge of never touching or wielding a weapon to actually be pretty fun and pretty interesting in lore, so he wound up pretty high up here. Hisrod, the Iron Bull, just narrowly avoided getting into S tier. He was pulled down by some of the more thematic powers with Inherit Wound and Witch Circle that I think do tend to add to the fun and the fantasy of being the ultimate bodyguard. So he's going to get an 8.67. I'm looking for an 8.8 to get us into S tier, and let's go look at that right now. And here we see Poppy, good abilities. Fantasy is a 9. I think really dedicating to troll singing and trying to make a more dark fantasy bard, a lot of people would be drawn to. Within the lore, people are going to look down on her as like a goblin troll singer, but I don't think she would particularly care. She's going to draw in more goblins and more trolls to her cause, and I think it's going to make a very, very fun character, actually. Let's see what else we got. I think Symbaroum newbies will be surprised that this character is so high up, and I think that Symbaroum veterans will be completely unsurprised that this build is so high up because we are, again, essentially playing 6 characters on the board, and I think the Pokemon Master build is a 10 in fantasy. I think it's a 9 in lore. I docked it an 8 on fun because being a squishy support yourself while having to manage 5 smaller character sheets can feel like a chore, but we're still a 9 in the flavor department and very close to a 9 overall. Let's see who's at the top of our list. Y'all, it's Mama Emma. Yeah, her abilities are solid, even the ones that bring us down a little in the mechanics department only contribute to the fun. Even as a pariah, with all of her strength and all of her enterprise and her persuasive ability, I truly think that this character could be a 10 in lore. She could be a friendly faction leader, she could be a villain in your campaign, or she could be your player character. I I think the fantasy on this one is a 10, and I can say from personal experience that playing this type of character is a 10. That is going to be a final score of 9 and the top of our list. When we look at the overall tier list updated for our new builds, I still have a pretty good foundation in A tier and B tier characters, a fair number in C and D tier, and we now have a top 10 with our S tier, with the classic Tattooed Warrior, Wrathguard, Queen Spy, and Templar, rounded out with my build for Vader, plus the new builds of Captain Ambria, Mei Hatsume, Himbo the Ogre, Poppy the Troll Singer, and Emma Frost, the White Queen. And that's going to be it for today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for maybe taking notes so that you can play one of these characters, although with your own nice little tweaks to it to make it your own build and not just mine. I have 5 more builds to go for this series. I'm still having a great time, and I hope you are still having a Nat 1 day. Bye-bye.